Beautiful. We're down here camping, Rock Mountain, down in Gibson, PA. This is our camper. Nice little 27-foot.
Oh, look at you.
And brought the truck because I'm gonna finish working on it, hopefully. Put it all back together. I've been driving around like that for like a week. But look at all those supplies. Got everything. Brought just about every tool we own. Tons of wire, hose, drills, everything. So let's get to it. First thing I'm going to be installing are these new gauges. Gauges are fairly simple. They're not hard, don't require a lot of tools. Let's get to it. Alright, so in a Nissan Frontier, when your dash is all together, you got a piece here and then another piece down here. First thing you're going to want to do to replace your gauges is take out this bottom panel, and then there's no screws on this top panel, so it just pops right out. And then your turn signal lights, they just pop into these back things, push in and twist. So you pop those out, this whole piece will come out now. It's got something sticky on it. And then you want to remove the rest of this cluster. So you just take and, this one has 3 screws on it. You just want to take all 3 of them out, remove the whole panel. Alrighty, so now I have all 3 of those screws out. Can I get these others? There we go. So now your whole gauge assembly will slide right out of there. Now you're going to want to take and unplug these. Unplugging them won't like do anything bad to it. It'll just, your odometer, your trip meter, it'll reset, but you'll still have like the original miles on it. Some people will take and go down to the junkyard and switch these out so that their vehicle will have less miles on it than there are. These things are hard to get out sometimes, most of the time. So, turn signal wires are attached to the gauge cluster in this case. Of course, so is this little clip. So you're just going to want to leave those wires hanging there. Now you got your gauge cluster out. As you can see, mine's cracked in half, so be careful with these. They are fragile. But there's just little things in the back that you push out. Once you get the most of them, that thing will just come out. Mine's a little easier because it's broken in half. Actually, that whole thing pulls off, so never mind. You don't even need to take off this back piece. Now, one of the important things is you're going to be pulling the needles off of here. And so you're going to want to go fill up your fuel so you know where your needle's supposed to be at. And I just got gas before we got here, so my tank's full. That, you know, these are all easier. Usually, I drove down here, it was like an hour drive, so it's going to be somewhere in the middle. But now you just want to take, I was real nervous about doing this, but, well, the first time I did it, you just want to take and pull off your needles. They're kind of hard, so you might feel like you're going to break, but just pull straight up, and they'll come off after a little bit of trying. Just try to pull straight up so you don't twist and break anything. And with your gas and heat gauge, mine were like different, and I screwed them up and I couldn't figure out why they wouldn't work. So just try to keep your two separate. So, you know, the one's gas and one's Alrighty, so that's off. It looks like this comes off, but the only problem with taking this off is your little needle deals here that keep your needle from going too far down. Those are attached to this one. I'm not sure if they... So you're just going to leave this one on, and then just put this one on top of that one. And now just take... I already have a spot notched out since I've done this before, but take a knife and notch out a little spot in the plastic for your cable to go. And now place your jerks.
Hey! Loud neighbors!
Drew?
It'll be louder once I get my air horns in. Now just take your plate here, stick it on top of this one. You're gonna have to do somewhat like lining it up right. Snap that back on. Make sure your cable's actually in your notch. So now that's back on. Now what you're going to do is take your gauge, just take and plug everything back in. Now, just fit it back in there. Now you're probably going, what about the needles? Now what you're going to do, take it out of gear first, then go ahead and start it up. See, the gauges are in there. Now when you're sitting here, obviously you're going to be doing 0 miles an hour. So we're going to take the needle and just push it on lightly. You don't need to get it too tight. If you get it too tight, since there's an extra layer in there, it's going to rub on your gauge, and it'll end up either like leaving wear marks on here, or it'll get stuck, and then it'll, like my tack did that before. It would stick as it went up. So you don't want to push them in too tight, just kind of lightly pop them in. And a lot of this is guessing. My speedometer was already off, so I don't really care too much. But you're going to take your, usually a car runs like 800 RPMs, so stick that on there. And it's too tight. It doesn't even move. Alright, so we gotta pull that back off. A little too high. Looks about right. It doesn't appear to be sticking or anything, so here's my heat gauge. Just gonna try to guess. Usually a car runs in the middle, or at least my truck does. So you're just gonna guess to me. I mean, you know, even if you do have it off by a little bit, I mean, if your gauge is up like this, you're obviously gonna know something's wrong. So, just gonna pop it in. Having trouble finding the hole. Again, not too tight. You want them to be able to move. In this truck, if you fill it, when you fill up the gas gauge, the gauge is up above the full line. And last time I did, I thought I'd fix it and make it so it stopped right there. But then the gauge would be completely on empty before the gas light would even come on. So yeah, you gotta put it up as pretty much as high as it'll go. I always have trouble finding the hole.